Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Stacey Swetnam from Legacy Gardens. Stacey's currently working as a qualified landscaper at Harrison's Landscaping, who's one of the top landscaping construction companies in New South Wales. Prior to starting in construction, she was working in maintenance and started Legacy Gardens then, and that has been kept that going on the side and plans to head out into that down the track. But it's another great example of how important it is who you work for when you first start out, because you would have learned a lot in construction from Harrison's. And she got that job by being proactive and finding landscape companies in the area that she wanted to work in, who also did the work that she wanted to do. So not just picking anyone. And she talks about how challenging it was in that first year as an apprentice. She was a mature age apprentice, but living in Sydney, the costs of living is quite expensive. So she was working three jobs at the same time. So working after work, she'd go and work another job, and then work weekends. She was working a separate job just so that she could be a landscaper, because that's the job she loved. So it was great hearing the perseverance, and now that she's qualified and doing well out of that. And at Harrison's, they use subcontractors for certain elements of the construction. And Stacey made a great point about how valuable it is learning from them. So learning from specialists in their field. So there's some good points to take away from this chat. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Stacey Swetnam. Stacey, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
How did I start? I actually started working in funerals. So I was doing a lot of the maintenance in cemeteries. Just when I finished writing, I was a show jumping writer for probably 7 years. And then when I finished up doing that, I really wanted to still be working outside. So I started working, I just got a job working in a place that the job application was for just gardening work. I didn't even really look at what it was. And I got the job, and then I started doing a lot of maintenance work. And then I moved into doing my own maintenance business. Did that for probably about 5 years, and then just wanted to do a bit more than just maintenance. So I think the natural progression was then to look at getting qualified to go into doing landscape construction.
Yeah. And did you do much horticulture? Like, did you learn much about horticulture when you were doing the maintenance, or was it sort of more lawns and?
Yeah. So we actually did a Cert 3 in Parks and Gardens when I was doing the maintenance with the cemeteries and crematoriums. So we sort of learnt a bit in horticulture from that, and then progressed that from that into construction from there.
And did you do any machine work when you're at the cemetery?
Yeah, I did grave digging and all of that as well, because it's sort of one of those jobs that when you get there, they just say, "Oh, well, you can do everything, can't you?" And you say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way
Yeah,
to learn though. Like, obviously it's good to, if someone showed you how to do things, but jumping in the deep end, I find is a good way to learn how to do things and add to your skill set.
yeah, and it's good to work with people that just let you make mistakes as well. Like the only way you can really learn sometimes is if you trial and error. And I mean, if you're just using a backhoe and digging holes, generally you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And do they have any fancy excavator attachments there, like rotators or anything like that?
Nothing too fancy, because you're just digging the same size hole over and
Yeah.
over again. So it's nothing. It's more the big issues they have there are cave-ins, and when it gets wet, you got
Yeah.
to be a little bit more technical with it. But there's a good basis to start learning how to do everything. You do a bit of with the maintenance. You'd sort of go between doing a bit of stone masonry stuff as well. Like there's a very good spot to start if I was interested in landscaping, just to kind of fall into that, because it let me have a go at everything. And then once I went more into maintenance, I did that for a while, because it's so easy to pick up work doing maintenance. You can get maintenance work everywhere in Sydney. But yeah, it was good to have that kind of background, because when I went into construction, I was like, oh, I've done a bit of this before. So I wasn't as shy to just have a go at things.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen some of the stonework you've done. It does look pretty cool. So
Yeah,
you've got a
yeah.
knack for it.
I love doing that. Yeah. So I find it the most rewarding, because you get such a big result at the end of it. And then once you put garden lights and everything with stonework, it just looks amazing.
Yeah, and the plants as well. I add a bit of color and life and softness to it.
Yeah. It makes a lot more sense for the clients once the plants go in all the time.
Yep. Yep, and not much dust flying around.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you decided you wanted to get into landscaping, what was the next step from that? How'd you go about that?
Well, I just basically looked up companies that were working in the area that I was living in the eastern suburbs in Sydney, and the ones that were doing the work that I liked the best. So I just approached them. I messaged two of them actually on Instagram and just said what I was looking to do. I want to get qualified, and so can I have a go? And I think some of them didn't really take me seriously. They just thought, oh, I don't know if she's actually serious or not, but I went and did a trial with the company that I'm at now, and they said, "Oh, if you're happy to go ahead, then we'll gladly take you on." So signed up with them. I already had a few credits that I could get through from doing the Cert 3 in Parks and Gardens, so it sort of moved me through the course a little bit faster. But yeah, it was just basically finding someone that did work that I liked, where I'd feel like I'd need to do more eventually. I just thought I'll just go in on someone that's doing something that I look like it'll challenge me.
Yep. So how long after you applied did you end up getting the go ahead to work there?
Like a week.
All right.
Yeah. It was they were needed staff, and so I did a trial. I think it was meant to be a week trial. I ended up doing about 3 days, and then they just offered me a position straight away after that.
Yeah, awesome. That's pretty lucky to get
Yeah.
so soon.
Well, I think it'd be the same now if anyone else was to do something like what I did, because everyone is so short on staff. Like, I know so many people running their own businesses that message me and say, "Oh, do you know anyone that's looking for a job anywhere?" And I said, "Well, you're probably the third person this month that's messaged me about the same thing. Like, there's just no one can get any staff anywhere. So if someone's willing and able, I think they'd just be jumping at giving anyone a go."
Yeah, and I've always found when you're actively contacting someone, you're going to have a lot more chance doing it because you're not just applying to an ad with a bunch of other people who are just applying, for any old ad that comes up. You're actually specifically looking for a job in the landscaping industry, so you got a better chance doing
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah. I think if you advertise for certain positions, like the company I'm at now, they had to get a few more staff in this year, and it was such a long process to go through all the applications, interview people. Whereas I just turned up. I met one of the directors at the company on site like 2 days after I'd messaged him, because I said, "Oh, if you're in the area, I'm in the area. I'll just pop by. Like, I'll just be there." And I think it was just that I was just so upfront with what I wanted. I was like, I'm not here to like mess around. I just want to get in, learn as much as I can, and work with you guys. Like, it wasn't going to be too hard for them either, because they knew what I wanted, and it just worked out that way.
Yep. And how long ago was that you made the switch?
Mm, Probably like three, 3 or 4 years now.
Yep. So are you qualified yet?
Yeah, all done.
Yeah, nice. So,
Yeah,
and what
yeah.
was it like? What was the transition like going from the working at the cemetery compared to landscaping? Did you find it was similar work?
It's a lot more technical, definitely doing the landscaping work, because it's a little bit more different every day. The working in the cemeteries and crematoriums, it's quite repetitive, and there's a plant list of about 12 plants that you're working with, and it doesn't change. It's very, yeah, same. Lots of hedging, conifers, buxus.
Yeah.
Nothing really too exciting. Whereas landscaping, I think now we work with so many different materials, and then the plants, it's every client has a different requirement of what they need. So you have a lot more, I find it's a lot more interesting because there's a lot more scope with what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, you're preaching it to converted there. Like that's my favorite
Yeah.
thing about landscaping is all the different variety of different roles you do within it.
Yeah.
And it's
No.
it's Harrison's landscaping you work with, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're a Sydney-based company. We work mainly eastern suburbs and northern beaches. And I'd say 98% of the projects were on a pool building as well.
Yeah. Is it a particular pool builder you work with, or do you do your own?
No, so Harrison's are licensed pool builders as well. So we do pool building on all the projects ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And do you get much involvement with that to see that sort of things?
I'm starting to learn a lot more of it. So I was so green going into it. I'd never built a pool or anything before, but that's sort of something we're looking at doing a bit more this year is so I can get in and involved with a lot more of the technical side of that.
And do some of the, like, I don't know that when I was talking to Michael McCoy last week, he was talking about some of the gardens in Sydney. There's a lot more $1 million landscapes that go in and like higher end landscapes. And from what I've seen
Yeah.
of Harrison's, you guys would probably do some of those as well. So
Yeah, yeah.
do you get blown away by some of the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised that when you look at the plans and you see what's coming up, like even this year, some of the projects I've looked at, I'm thinking like they keep getting bigger and bigger. Just when you think you've done one that's pretty huge, then you look at another one coming around the corner, and there's always. I feel like with the work that they pick up, it's usually they don't advertise. It's all referrals, and it's usually people that have seen something and they want something better. They just want one
Yeah.
thing better. So it's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
that one upping each other. So yeah, we're working on some pretty awesome projects, which is a lot of fun because it's just it's a great experience as someone coming in late into the industry to be able to work on such high end projects and figure out what part of that I enjoy the most and then to try and really hone my skills on that.
Yeah. And in those bigger projects, you're going to do a wider range of different roles. Whereas if you're working
Yeah.
for a smaller company like a two-man show, then you might only do, flexible paving to start with, or it's going to be a lot slower development. So it's a pretty
Yeah.
good start getting like choosing who you work for, like
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's made a big difference. Like just with the skills that I've got starting with a company that does that, because we've had a few guys move over from other companies and just seeing even the adhesives and stuff that they're used to using when they thought, oh no, this is what we've always used. I think, oh God, okay, well, there is some cowboy methods that I've never come across until you meet other people and they say, oh no, that's how we've always done it. And you think, oh, okay, just you just don't get exposed to it, so you don't realize that's what's happening. But when you realize, oh, okay, this is we are doing things that well, I guess it's with your guarantee as well. Like if you've got a reputation to uphold, then you're going to be using the best products you can
yeah,
within your budget so that you're completing work that you can be proud of. You're not going to be having to go back and fix it up.
yeah. And there's more than one way to do a lot of different things within landscaping as well. So it's good having other people, like whether you go and work for somewhere else or working alongside someone else or get an employee from someone else coming to work for you. It's a great way to learn different ways to do things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's great. And we have a lot of subcontractors as well that come in on site. So we're everyone's learning from each other all the time. But I love watching some of like even our guy that does all of our tiling for our pools and the plumbing, like watching how quick he works and how organized he is and each of our subbies that come in they all work differently but you can all learn so much from just watching what they're doing and how they do things, how they handle their day to day. I love seeing all of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, whenever I talk about a landscaper doing something, the person who does that and that's their only job is usually a lot better at it because landscapers, you do
Yeah,
a little bit of everything, so you can't be perfect at everything. So that's an awesome way to
yeah,
learn different skills by getting subcontractors in and working alongside them and watching the way
yeah,
they do it.
yeah, yeah, and just realizing that there's I think the good thing with landscaping is you get to have a go at everything, but there's what's the saying I get told a lot, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. But apparently that
Yeah.
saying goes, Jack of all trades, master of none is always, I think it's something like always better than a master of one. So
Yeah,
there's a
true.
second part of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe a landscaper invented that second part of it though.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it works for me, I'll run with it though.
So with the talking about your stonework, I think it was like a white limestone I saw you doing. So it's like it looks like I've never worked with it, but I've seen it. It looks like a soft stone, so you can get the joints really tight. Is there a particular
Yeah, so that was
stone that you
cotton
like working
rock.
with? What was it? Sorry.
That was cotton. It's called cotton rock. It is I think it's a limestone product we get from Gatherco,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, this is the first time I'd worked with it before as well. But it's fantastic to work with because it's nice and soft. So to cut it and shape it into getting it really nice and flush, it was so much easier to work with than most stone things that we've done before. But yeah, that one was like I said, the first time we've used that product. But generally stonework, like sandstone, anything, I just love doing that because it's the texture of it, and it's very the the cotton rock we had to do a little bit more tweaking with because being so light in color, it really showed up if there was any flaws or gaps or anything in it. So we had to spend a bit more time on it. Like the daily rate that we were getting done sometimes was a little bit disappointing. But yeah, no, I love working with. We have a really good quarry in Sydney, Gosford Quarries, that we get a lot of our sandstone out of. So any of the products that you get out of there are usually really, really well done. So it just makes it so much easier to work with.
Yeah. So talking about your rates that you're laying at, do you get told what the your employer is hoping for you to lay at? Like how many
Yeah.
meters a day?
Yeah, there's an expected rate per day, how many
Yeah.
square meters. But I mean, this year was a lot better than the year before. Like the year before, with all the rain and everything, it was just a nightmare constantly because especially now with clients working from home, they're seeing everything every day. So when they're told as well by project managers what the rate is going to be, and they'll go out at the end of the day. If it's not done, then you've got multiple people to answer to. So I think it's made it a lot more interesting working with clients that are at home all the time now as well, because they're not just in contact with the project managers or the directors of the company. They're there with you all the time, constantly asking you a lot more questions than I think they used to.
You just tell them to stop asking questions because you're trying to get some meters down.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you're making me a coffee, what are you doing?
Have you got a favorite stone? Is it the Gosford Quarry stone that you like to work with?
Yeah, like I mean, I love working with the cotton rock last year on the job that we did at Dover Heights. That was probably one of the favorite ones that I've worked with. But otherwise, yeah, sandstone from Gosford Quarries is always going to work really well. And then we use a lot of limestone with our paving as well. So Artisan Exteriors, they do probably one of my favorite products that we have from them is a limestone called Garon.
Yeah, I think
It's just
Eco
a
sell have the same. We've got one called that, so I assume it's the same one.
Yeah, yeah. Artisan and Eco are sort of our main two suppliers for all of our paving, and they've got some really good products there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful stone. We've done a couple of projects in the past with it, and we've got a massive one coming up as well with it. It's yeah, because I like the color of it because it's kind of like a light grey, but also
Yeah,
it's got like we've seen some sort of fossils inside it as well.
yeah, yeah. It's got some really interesting tones to it as well. Like when it's wet and around, it was really good around pools as well because when it picks up greens from the plants, it just
Yeah.
it's a really good one.
And you've also got your like you mentioned it when you were at the cemetery, you were working for yourself on some maintenance projects as well, and you've got
Yeah,
your company called Legacy Gardens, which I assume is like a weekend kind of
yeah,
business.
yeah. That's my extra thing to do when I'm not tired enough from work at the end of the day. I'll go and work on jobs with that as well. So I've just started. I did originally have that. Just I kept it running in the background with just doing maintenance jobs just to keep them ticking over. But starting to incorporate a bit more landscaping work with that. A lot of people inquire about getting stonework done because it's hard enough to get the the job signed off with companies in Sydney. There's just so much work around. So people have a lot of like remedial work that they want done. So I'll just pick up weekend work doing that. But looking to try and grow that, especially this year, grow that a little bit more into doing like full complete jobs, not just like bits and pieces.
Yep. And you can see yourself moving to that full time eventually.
Eventually, yeah, I think that's the main goal is to have that with a separate maintenance division going from that, and then get a couple of staff going, maybe a couple of apprentices, and grow that.
Yeah, cool. And do Harrison's do any designs?
Yes, that's all in-house design. So we've got one of the directors, Sam Snaith. He does designs, and then we've got another designer, Katie, as well.
And do you get involved in any of that at all, like learning that side of things?
I haven't gone into the design rooms yet. Like it's always something that they said if I was interested in, I could go and have a look at. I'm just not really. I'm at the moment sort of deciding what I'm supposed to go and focus on studying a little bit more now because with the scholarship that I've just won with Narwick, it's sort of, do I look at going into studying some more design, or do I go and study project management? It's sort of, when you're looking to start up a business, the Cert 3 is great for landscape construction, but it's so general. So then where do you go from there? Like where are you supposed to be?
Yeah, it's like the minimum is the Cert 3. It's just that's the basic, and then
Yeah,
yeah, and then you can actually start learning from that because what
yeah,
you learn within that is no different to what you'll learn on the job anyway. So
yeah,
yeah, it makes sense. So that was the NAWIC is the National Association of Women in Construction, and you just won.
yeah.
It was a tradesperson of the year.
Yeah, yeah. For they have and it's each state has a division for it. So I won the New South Wales Tradeswoman of the Year. Yeah.
Cool. Does that go to? Is there a national one that you go on to after that, or well, that's
I
the
thought there might have been, but it's just, yeah, it's just the statewide one. So once you win that, it's a $5,000 scholarship that you win, and that's to be spent on education, any kind of education that you want to use for
yeah,
that
right.
year. So
Yeah. So now you're just trying to find the right course that you want to learn.
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm struggling with a little bit. Like I've sort of have spoken to some of the guys at TAFE, and they were saying we've got design or project management, so you can, they're the two options. But yeah, it's kind of hard to decide what is going to be best for running a business at the end of the day. Like, do I want to then look to, if I do project management, then I'm skipping design, and then do I get another designer to outsource all the designing, or do I want to do that and focus on that? It's just picking one, really.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you could also add like a business course as well, and like to
Yeah.
learn potentially how to run a business. But yeah, it'd be tough to choose when you've got a certain amount to spend on where to spend it.
Yeah, well, it's like it's a luxury, but yeah, I don't want to put myself backwards by trying to get ahead with picking the wrong course, like it's because everyone's time is valuable. So I don't want to waste it. Like the education's valuable, but I don't want to go down a path that could have been used doing something else. So it's
Yeah, and then learn
the
something
tricky
that you're
one.
not going to use.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think there'll probably be there's no real wrong answers, I suppose, like whichever one you go with, because you're gonna get more value out of it, and even if it's something you don't head down, there'll be something that's relatable back to the path you do take.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like every course, I guess you're not going to get 100% out of the course. You just got to take what you can. So just looking around a little bit, I've looked at master builders as well because they have a construction specific project management kind of course. So maybe look at doing something like that.
Yeah, I find that with master builders and the people where they're not specifically landscaping, it's more sort of builder focused. So it's not a lot of it's not
Yeah,
relevant to what we do.
yeah, yeah,
Um, where I first came across you was when you had your podcast that you did early last year. We did a few
yeah,
episodes. The Tradie Lady podcast, is that correct? Is that what's it called?
yeah, yeah. Tradie
Yeah,
Lady Talk. Yeah,
yeah. That was an amazing like few podcasts to listen to and really eye-opening for me. So it was people, it was women within the construction industry, not just landscape you were talking to, but yeah, it was phenomenal
yeah.
hearing, how they started in the industry and then, things that happened to them when they're working and then yeah, it's good seeing what they're doing now, the three that you had on. So where did that
Yeah, yeah.
how long are you planning to get that up and running for?
Well, I was planning on doing like weekly episodes, and I had big plans with it, but then it's sort of tricky getting guests on and working around time. So I was going to do a few more episodes kicking off this year and get a few different trades in there. But it's the main thing for me was, as a female on site, like I haven't had any experiences where I've been treated badly, but sometimes you just, the things that you just, as women, you think, oh God, like you're a bit out on your own. So I just wanted to be able to, basically, I was driving home one day and just thought, like, I haven't actually got anyone to talk to that I know that's a female in trade. Like, I've be driving home and I call my partner and just rant to him, but I think he's probably sick of hearing this as well. So I thought, when I'm not ranting to him, I'm listening to podcasts. So why don't I just start a podcast, and then it's at least some sort of conversational material that things happen during the day, or you might run into the same issues where you just feel like you need support in some way. So I thought, if I talk to other women in trade and see what they're doing, they might have different strategies and like courses. Some things work for you, some things don't. But if it's just a few little things that might help someone else that's driving home feeling irritated about something that's happened for the day, then if it helps one person, then that's all it's needed to do, really.
Yeah, like even the episode you put out would have, like, without a doubt, would have helped people. So I think it's an
Yeah,
awesome idea. And like women in construction have a lot different challenges than what men in construction do. So like you're
yeah.
exactly right with what you can't just talk to anyone about the things you're going through.
Yeah, it's tricky because like you sort of, you're coming into an industry where it is, you are a minority, and generally now I think a lot of people do want you to succeed, but you still get, you'll see things like, I think last year Bunnings did some sort of scholarship where they were encouraging women who are in trades to, I think it was a $2,000 tools prize that you would win, and they had it on their social media, and the amount of comments that were coming through from not anonymous people, this is people using with their first and last name very clear, and just hammering them like, oh well, like they should be in the kitchen, and just all the comments that you hear, like kind of snicket every now and then, and you think there's so many of those people still out there, and
Yeah.
they're working in construction, and it's just, they're, you might have 90% of the people want you to just work alongside them and all get along, but there's always that 10% that are going to be there saying like you shouldn't be here, and it's just an expectation. But yeah, just having other people that have gone through, like Maddie, the plumber who I had on, she'd gone through some bloody horrific things. And when
Oh,
she was super young as well, like to have plumbing glue put in your hair when you're a teenager,
yeah.
when you're at work, like, oh, just, you just don't think that things are that bad currently.
Yeah, that's what I
But
was
that
most
happened
surprised
to her
about.
2 years ago. Yeah, so it's still happening. And you just think, Jesus Christ, like, it's it's just being able to talk to someone where that has happened, and you think, how many other people is that happening to as well?
Yeah, like that was that episode blew me away the most. Like yeah, I had no idea that that stuff still happened. And it's the same with racism that still goes on. There's still Neanderthals saying all sorts of things. And as far as like people saying that women shouldn't be on site, there's a lot of men who shouldn't be on site because of how poor they are at doing their job. So it's not.
Yeah,
It's just those people exist. It's the same with comments on social media, like regardless of whether it's a woman or not. It's just there's people out there who have got problems going on in their life and they deflect that out onto other people.
yeah,
So, yeah, but you do have to have a sort of you've got to be a tougher inside, I think, to be a woman in the construction industry because there are going to be the occasional times where that, like you say, that it's only 10%, if that, of the people in the industry who are like that. But
yeah.
that could really eat away at someone's confidence just by hearing comments like that every now and then.
Yeah, but it's also, it's at the end of the day, it's the people that you're working around as well. So the team of guys that I work with, if anyone was to ever come on site and say anything like that to me, I wouldn't even have to deal with it. They'd jump in there straight away and just
Yeah.
say not on, like not happening here. So I think it's just knowing that you don't have to be, like, if you're on a site and people are letting things like that happen to you, change companies. There's so, like I said, there's so many people that can't get staff, that are desperate for people that are willing to do good work. Like, don't be working for someone, and like, if you're working for someone, they're making money off you. Don't give them your money. Like it's go to someone else. There's so many people that are really willing to have females on site, and because it's especially now, like with people working from home, that there's a lot more people that are happier to see at least one female on site because it's just they're happy to leave their kids there because generally like if I'm on site the even the subbies they'll watch what they're saying a little bit more, like they're less likely to just throw around swear words. Like I'll probably swear more than they will, but they're just it's just it makes a little bit of a difference. It just changes the tone a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like my experience with having female employees is they think differently as well, which is positive because it's always good to have different ideas on how to go about doing something.
Yeah,
And there's also the attention to detail is there a hell of a lot more than what a lot of guys have. So there's so many
yeah.
pros to having a mix of people on your team.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like everything with different genders, different races, and then different ages. Like it all makes a big difference having that variety in there because then you get if you're all getting the same people, the same age, you're going to get the same kind of work, and it doesn't balance out. You need a bit of balance, and then you'll get the product that you want in the end.
Yeah, yeah. If you've got all the same, like all, the same people, the same age, it's just going to be an echo chamber. But one person will say something, they'll all agree, and
Yeah,
never actually grow.
cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I know that's awesome. Like, it does take a lot of work doing a consistent podcast, but yeah, there'll be a whole lot of people would benefit out of the one you're doing. So, yeah, I love the idea. So, and it's also good seeing the community of women in construction as well, like the Tradie Lady
It's
Club,
a
and
big one.
yeah, there's multiple
Yeah.
ones. Like I've got Beck coming up in a couple of weeks from encouraging women in horticulture as well. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different groups that are encouraging women to get into horticulture and as well as the construction industry.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of them out there. Even so, there's Tradie Lady Club in Melbourne. That's a big one. That's a big kind of social network. There's Empowering Women in Trade that have got a big event coming up in Melbourne in February. But there's a lot of groups, organisations some are industry connected, some are not. But it's the more you look into it, the more you see how much support there is. But it's difficult because on a bigger scale, it starts when you're wanting to get people into trade. It's got to start in schools, and when you're talking to, I've done a few careers expos. Last year, I was on a stand with some of the companies that are trying to bring apprentices in, like MEGT, one of the providers, the apprentice network providers. And when you speak to people at school, they're not, it's still the same like old school rhetoric of, oh, if you get good marks, everyone go to uni, like just everyone go there. Unless you're a guy and you don't really think you're going to be good at uni, then you can get a trade. But then when you speak to girls and you say like, what are you thinking about? And they say, oh, I don't really know. Like, I guess I'll just go to uni and do commerce or something. And I say, well, how are your marks going? Like, do you think you're going to get into the course you want? And they said, oh, well, I'd really like to do design or something, but I don't know if I'll get into architecture. And when you mention like, well, if engineering or architecture or something, if you considered trade, because there's a lot of design and construction has a lot of those engineering elements in it. It's never been mentioned to them. Like it's still a thing in school that young girls aren't being encouraged from a school level into trade. So it's sort of an uphill battle from that
Yeah,
because it shouldn't be at a careers expo that you're the first person to tell them that it's an option.
yeah. And that also like it's more challenging for a female to get a job in the construction industry than it is a male because a lot of employers are going to pick a male easier than they would a female because of
Yeah.
the preconceived ideas. So it's also harder for if they don't choose that path early and then they become a mature age apprentice. It's even harder again because the wages go up. So
Yeah.
the fact that you got a apprenticeship as a mature age apprentice is even more luck.
Yeah. Well, so my apprenticeship was mature age because I went in. when I think I was 29 or 30 when I started.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I found out what the wage was going to be, I was like, holy, like that's I was like, is that it? Is that the best you can do? And like the Harrisons are really good. They bumped it up a bit and said like like that's a lot more than what most mature age apprentices are getting. But I was working my first year, I was working like three jobs. I was finishing work, I was going and like hosting at restaurants, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and then Fridays and Saturdays I was working. Sundays I was working. Like I was just working all the time. Like that first year was such a blur because I'd come in, I'd had a car on finance. I pay rent in Sydney, which is an eye-watering price. Like it's just I was like, how the hell do people live like this? Like but I think once you get through those first few years and get going, and I've spoken to a few mature age people at careers expos as well and just said like what have you got to lose? Like, yeah, it'll be hard for a year or two, but like just cut back on everything. Like, because at the end of your 3 or 4 year apprenticeship, you're going to be earning more at the end of that. If you don't do it and you wait another 4 years, or you are 4 years along in the same position, earning the same money, you you sometimes you've got to step back to step ahead. Like
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's just a sacrifice you've got to make.
Yeah. And then like also the carrot of getting to work in a job that you have a passion for. Like
Yes.
that's a hell of a lot of a bonus as well. Like it will be a bit harder to get your foot in the door and that first couple of years, but the happiness that you're going to have of enjoying going to work is going to
Yeah.
outweigh any money you get paid in those few years.
Yeah, well, I was speaking to one lady last year at a career expo that was just doing truck driving, and she said, "I just don't like it." Like she was doing semis, like Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne runs, and said, "I just don't enjoy it anymore." But I don't think I can afford to go and do an apprenticeship. She wanted to be a like a mechanic. I was like, well, if you're not enjoying it now, you're not going to enjoy it next year or the year after. Like your income is not going to increase as a truck driver. It's probably going to stay the same for quite a while now. Like if you want to do something that you enjoy, it's worth it, really, because you how many hours a week do you spend at work? And if you don't enjoy it, what a miserable life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I talk about that a lot. How lucky I am to be in a job that I actually love doing. That's like a hobby that I get paid for. So
Yeah,
yeah, the more people that can have that happiness, the better.
yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about specifically?
Well, I was just because I'm still in the middle of picking courses and deciding what I'm doing next year. What would you do? You have any recommendations of where you would look to do further study, or what has helped you in business the most get ahead?
I'm probably the worst person to ask because I haven't done any training since I did my certificate three in horticulture
Yeah,
slash landscaping. So before I started landscaping, I did half a year of I did a year of Cert 4 in horticulture, but that was just to get into landscaping. And then
yeah,
since then, everything I've learned is on the spot. I looked into doing landscape architecture just so I could
yeah,
have the degree, but then I thought that yeah, I could start getting work anyway without it. So it doesn't seem to be a point.
yeah,
I'd like to do some sort of landscape course because landscape design course because I think there's different ways you can think about things. So obviously, someone who's learnt landscape design or landscape architecture has a more they're more knowledgeable about design principles and that sort of thing rather than what I've just learnt from looking at things.
yeah,
But in terms of courses, I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to ask. If I was going to do a design course from someone out of the blue, I'd probably go to the London College of Garden Design because theirs seems like the most well-rounded one. So they've
yeah,
got a campus in Melbourne. I think you can do online, but outside of that, I don't know. Um, there's a lot of designers that do courses.
yeah,
So it's all, you could almost find a designer whose style you like, and then that potentially do their short course.
Yeah.
And that depends if you have to use your scholarship in one go or not, because they're usually not as much as what you've got to spend there. But yeah, that's one of the good things I think about designers who are actually providing courses is you can actually find someone whose style you like and learn that.
Yeah. Yes, there's a more concentrated course.
Yeah, yep. So it's just more sort of going through the way they go about thinking about how they do a design. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a 12-month thing, obviously. So you obviously
Yeah.
get to learn more in an actual structured course than what theirs would provide. But
Yeah, well, I guess it depends what you're wanting to learn as well.
yeah,
Like a structured course is good, but yeah, there's sometimes you're halfway through it and you think, I just want to get out there and like start doing the work. I'm not going
yeah,
to learn by constantly just reading, reading, and not actually getting on tools and getting things done.
yep. And like you said before a few times, you're not going to be learning everything. Everything that they're teaching you isn't relevant to what you want to learn anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you spoken to anyone at Harrison's about learning the business side of things?
Yeah, so I spoke with some of our directors at the end of the year because we do a performance review at the end of every year, and I sort of said to them like, what business wise, like where's the best way for me to go about learning how to set things up, and because they've all come from different areas. Like there's three directors. One of them, Sam, he's come from more design side, and then Josh is like the business head. He's got the balcony garden business as well. So they sell pots that's all incorporated into a lot of our designs. So he's strong in that area. And then Ben's our project manager and co-director. And so he's used to running that side. So everyone's running different sections of the business. So they have different perspectives on what they think is valuable because it's their area of work.
That's a good mix though of those three different ones. So that
Yeah.
works well.
Yeah. It balances out pretty well.
Yeah. And last question for you, Stacey, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, I wouldn't mind seeing more female landscapers coming on.
Yep.
They're hard to find. I haven't
Yeah.
found too many out there, but I do know from our suppliers that there's a lot out there. There's in New South Wales anyway, so I'm not sure about down your way, but as a guest, I think about tradespeople, but the people I find fascinating are always like more horticulturalists and people
Yeah.
that have done a lot of travel. I love listening to people that have just traveled to gardens and what they've seen there and the new designs that they've seen all around the world. I just find all of that super interesting. Like that there's a lot that we're doing within the industry that we can all kind of keep on top of, but the people that have sort of gone around and seen, I love hearing about what's new in plants and all of that side of things.
Yep. Yeah. That I always find the plants people are more yeah, really passionate as well. Like they really love their
Yeah,
job more than most
yeah,
people.
yeah,
All right, Bill, thank you for that. I'll yeah, absolutely love chatting to you. As I mentioned, I love that you did the podcast and yeah, even if it's just the three episodes, they're three valuable ones. So that's awesome.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing when Legacy Gardens gets up and running as well and following your journey on there. So thanks very much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.